This is about how salmon are caught on the Pacific coast by commercial fishermen.
There are 3 main ways of harvesting salmon, each one requiring different equipment and different skills.
We'll start with trolling, which can be done by one person, although sometimes there might be 2 for company. Trolling uses fishing lines like we are used to, with flashers and lures with hooks that catch the salmon when they bite what they think is a smaller fish.
The fishing lines are stainless steel wires with heavy lead balls that pull the ends down as much as 60 meters, because sometimes the salmon are feeding very deep in the sea. The lines hang from long poles that keep them separated. With all the lines set out in the water, the boat moves along slowly, hopefully in an area where a school of fish is swimming.
When a fish bites on a lure, the jerking on the line causes a little bell to ring at the end of the pole, and the fisherman reels in that line to bring the salmon into the boat. The fisherman uses a large gaff hook to lift the salmon out of the water. Then he flicks the lure out of the salmon's mouth and puts the line back in the water. It looks easy, but that's all part of the troller's skill.
Sometimes the fisherman's routine is interrupted. All that noise and commotion is caused by a sea lion following the boat, no doubt doing some fishing of his own. With that sea lion around, fishing is likely to be a bit slow. Now is a good time to clean some of the caught salmon. Then the fish will be packed in ice to keep them fresh. Or if the boat is not too far from port, the fisherman may take his catch to the dock or packing plant that night.
Trollers out on the west coast of Vancouver Island might stay out on the ocean for a week until they have a full fish hold. It seems like a good life, but I bet it can get kind of lonely at times. A second kind of commercial fishing boat is the gill netter. It can be a one-person boat like the troller, but if the fishing is good, an extra hand can be very useful. The net is paid out from a big spool or drum as the boat moves ahead. Along one edge of the net there are floats, and along the other edge a line of weights. So the net hangs in the water like a curtain. The end of the net is marked by a colored float. The fish swim against the net and get caught by their gills.
When the net has been in the water for a while, the fishermen start to bring it in and wind it up on the drum. Of course, they hope that the net has been hanging in the way of a school of salmon, and also that the net openings were the right size for the kind of salmon that swam into it. If the mesh of the net was too large, the salmon would swim right through and escape. If the mesh was too small, the fish would just bump into the net without poking their heads and gills through. There's one caught in the net. This is where 2 persons can work faster than just one, in getting the salmon out of the net. The faster they can do that, the sooner the net can be returned to the water to catch more fish. Gill netters mostly catch sockeye salmon, which don't often bite on trollers' lures. They also get chum and pink salmon.
That's a good-sized salmon, a really nice fish.
And this one's even bigger.
Wow, I'll say.
When the net has been brought in and the marker buoy comes aboard, then the boat can be maneuvered to a likely place for the next set.
Sometimes a gill net boat will also be equipped with trolling poles and gurdies. Then it is called a combination boat. And it can fish for Chinook and coho salmon with lures, or sockeye, pinks, and chum salmon with the gill net. But the rule is that you can't have both kinds of gear on the boat at the same time. Night fishing is legal for gill netters, and it has the advantage that the net is less visible in the dark water. Of course, they have to be careful not to run over other nets or bump into nearby boats.
The biggest salmon boats on the Pacific coast are the purse seiners. They have a crew of 5 persons, so there has to be room for everyone to sleep and eat. And the seine net itself takes up a lot of room on the deck. Wound up on a drum, something like the gill netter, only much larger. Some seine boats are as long as 20 meters or more, with powerful diesel motors and hydraulic pumps. Some are modern steel-hulled boats, with special refrigeration in the fish holds. And there are quite a few older boats that still use ice to keep the catch in good condition.
When they are ready to set the seine net, the boat's power skiff acts like a tug and anchors one end of the net, while the big boat steers in a circle. The net pulls off the drum and surrounds the area where the captain thinks there are fish. Sometimes the fishing area is very crowded with boats. A purse seine is, well, like a purse. The large net hangs down in the water from a float line, but instead of catching salmon by the gills, the seine net surrounds a school of fish, and then the bottom end is drawn closed like a drawstring bag or purse. The power skiff brings the end of the net back to the boat, and then gets out of the purse so it won't be in the way when they close the net up. Now the net can be brought in and the purse closed. The line of float shows how one end of the net is attached to the boat, the other end winding up on the drum.
This man is driving a plunger into the water to keep the fish from escaping before the net is fully pursed. Those are the purse rings that are pulled together to close the bottom of the net.
It takes about an hour to make a set and bring the net back in. And all that time, you don't know for sure whether you've got any fish or not. A set could bring in very few fish, maybe only 20, or it could be several hundred.
The fish are brought on board with a small net they call a brailer. This is kind of like a purse net in reverse. The salmon are scooped up, and when they are over the fish hold, the brailer purse is open.
Okay.
And that just keeps up until all the salmon are out of the seine, and the crew are ready to make another set.
We've got no market for jellyfish. Yeah. Be a rich man today.
There used to be a lot of small fish canneries along the coast, but as with corner stores and supermarkets, it proved to be more economic to have fewer and bigger processing plants. So the boats had to install refrigeration to keep the fish in good condition for longer runs into port.
Nowadays, there's often more time spent in port than on the fishing grounds. That's because you can't just catch all the salmon. Everybody wants their share, and some have to be allowed to go up the rivers to spawn and produce future harvests.
But there's always plenty to do in port, especially if you are a net fisherman.
Looks like mending nets is up to the women. Where are the men?
Oh, they mend nets too. Of course, they could be unloading fish or fixing their boats. Anyway, there's always lots to keep everyone busy when the salmon are running.